Here we go. Hi, everyone. We're going to do this. We are going to talk about it. Today, I want to talk about an experience from my past, an experience that's been deeply misunderstood online, an experience that was taken out of context in ways that felt deliberate, and one that cost me a lot. This video is about Stephanie, also known as Rotten Mango. What happened between us took place over half a decade ago. We're talking like 5 or 6 years back, but people still talk about our fallout to this day. Stephanie Soo told the internet about our real-life interaction together in a way that seemed less like a personal story and more like a true crime special. She took moments between us and magnified them into something way bigger, weaving it in and out of an emotionally charged narrative that, in the end, felt designed to hurt me. The reason I'm bringing this up now is because my weight loss got 50 million views, and it sparked a lot of interest in who I am. Millions of people are coming in, they're watching old content, and this includes videos made about me and Stephanie. Back in 2019, she put out Why I'm Afraid of Nikocado. It went viral. It's got like 17 million views. I made a response to that years ago, but it only got 4. That means that the vast majority of people coming in aren't hearing my side. So this video will be a shortened recap of exactly what happened between me and Stephanie. And it will also be the truth. Because if you want to hold people accountable, both sides deserve to be heard. I am an actor, and for the past 8 years, I was on a character development for my YouTube channel. I was intentionally gaining weight. I was intentionally acting like a buffoon. I was developing an online persona. In the earlier years of this, I leaned very heavily into covering drama from other YouTube creators. I'd spill the tea on them, even holding a kettle prop sometimes. I'd stir the pot, throw the shade. I literally injected myself into any drama. And a lot of people couldn't separate that character from the real me. And this is how things started to develop in the very beginning. By the time Stephanie and I crossed paths, I had already gained over 100 pounds and built a reputation for having a character that was chaotic, loud, and messy.
We have a few things to discuss. The tea is steaming hot. You eat. I have some receipts. Sit down. You, these clowns. Your fault. Everything about me is No. For anything. You actually sit down. Sticking her nose in drama. Acting like she doesn't want drama.
I was not always seen as credible. And this made me an easy target. The perfect fall guy. I mean, who's going to believe or even take seriously the man throwing food on his face and shirt? Probably no one. And Stephanie Soo knew it. She leaned into it, and she leveraged it. I want to tell you the quick 30-second summary of what exactly happened between us. I wanted Stephanie Soo to sit down and gossip with me in one of these types of videos, to spill the tea about drama happening in our mukbang community.
Nick said it very assertively, we're gonna talk about Veronica and we're gonna spill all the tea. I freaked out, and again, I wanted to defend myself by sharing my story, which is I think what he wanted.
And that made her uncomfortable. I clearly didn't pick up on that well enough, and that was my first mistake. And then as a result, she didn't show up to one of her collabs and gave me what I perceived at the time to be a flimsy excuse. So I reacted poorly. I sent her angry text messages, I vented about it with my friends, and I made it pretty clear that I was going to bring up the situation in my next drama video.
I'm this effing close to making an video.
That was the core of what happened between us. And that was 100% my fault. I was immature, I was unkind, I was unprofessional, I was childish, I was wrong. Stephanie, I am genuinely sorry. You were not obligated to sit and gossip with me on camera. You didn't owe me that. And I was totally out of line for reacting the way I did when you didn't show up to film. I was too wrapped up in trying to get juicy content for my channel. I clearly lacked the maturity to handle the situation the right way. I also want to apologize to you, Stephanie, for saying I would call you out for ghosting me. You know, plans change. It happens. Looking back, the way I treated you, the way I responded to you was not okay. Like I said, I was caught up in trying to get juicy content for my channel that I wasn't being considerate of how I was making you feel. You didn't deserve that, and I am sorry. And there's something that I've never actually shared with anyone until now. That situation with Stephanie changed me. It made me take a hard look at myself, how I was using my platform, how I was creating content, how I was making people feel. And I realized if I was going to keep this going, if I was going to keep putting myself out there in this way, trying to make edgy content, I had to go about it differently. Not overnight, but around that time, I made a choice. No more dragging other people into my drama. So I started to shift. It would be my own mess. My chaos, my circus, smashing pies in my face, bouncing on scooters with my belly hanging out, screaming and crying and laughing like a lunatic. It was absurd, but it was mine. I didn't need to bring other people into that tent. And sure, every now and then I would clap back at someone or throw a little shade here and there, but overall there was a real shift to the content I was making. Because deep down, I didn't want to hurt anybody. I just wanted to put on a show. With that said, two things can be true at the same time. Yes, I was wrong to egg on drama during my collab with Stephanie. Yes, I was out of line for getting upset over text. And yes, venting about it on social media wasn't okay either. But what happened next didn't feel like a response. It felt like a preemptive strike. You see, before we filmed together, Stephanie wasn't exactly the persona many knew her as. Off camera, she talked poorly about other creators in our community. It was bad. She wasn't actually that shy about throwing shade. And to be honest, that's okay. A lot of YouTubers have a more professional front for the camera and then a more relaxed, candid one off camera. That's just real life. I don't fault her for that. But when our collab fell apart, she panicked. She knew I was upset. She knew she said things that she didn't want going public. So before I could say anything, she got ahead of the story and she rewrote the story. Stephanie opened her video about me with what looked like security footage. Her shaking on a couch, visibly distressed, with someone holding on to her. It was dramatic, it was intense, and for the millions of people unfamiliar with either of us at the time, it planted a powerful impression that the person in that footage was me, and where she wouldn't clarify who the man was until 30 minutes into the video when many people had already clicked out. From there, she invoked language and imagery that directly echoed the Me Too, a movement created to support the survivors of and
In and out of sleep.
In and out of sleep. Well, Me Too.
Hashtag Me Too.
She repurposed the emotional weight of that cultural reckoning and redirected it at me. Not only did this lend her story immediate credibility, but it also cast me in the role of a within the first 10 seconds, before even having to say it directly. That movement isn't for you to use as a prop. It's not a storytelling device for dramatic effect. It's not meant to be used as emotional currency. But in Stephanie's video, it became all those things.
I feel like I've been manipulated by fear, that I can't say no to him. I just want to take back my power to say no. I think when someone shows me a pattern of predatory behavior, I'm not going to not listen. Hashtag too. And feeling like
Framing our fallout with references like that shifts how people understand it. She said that my interaction with her was at a similar degree to when she was
and the only way that I've ever felt like this to any degree in my life prior to Nick, it was one where I felt shit. I was in my own home. Felt like no really didn't have a lot of power.
Stephanie literally co-opted the Me to intensify and distort the nature of our conflict that was at its core about gossiping on camera, canceling a collab, and venting about it through texts. She used dark imagery to connect us to a serious cause.
I think when someone shows me a pattern of I told myself I would never, ever feel like that again.
And I'm sorry, that's a terrible thing to do to a person. And I'm not saying that Stephanie didn't feel uneasy or that she wasn't allowed to set her own boundaries. Of course she was. But there's a major difference between being uncomfortable with gossiping on camera and equating that to serious, life-altering violations of content. Her video about me wasn't just sharing her experience. It was about turning me into a real villain and doing it through the lens that guaranteed public outrage. In the video, she claimed that she lost the power to say no.
Your basic human fundamental rights to say no. Can't say no to him I just want to take back my power to say no.
Lost the power to do what? To say, hey, change the subject, I don't want to talk about that on camera? Or, hey, I don't want to come to the next collab, sorry?
Not feel like someone's holding this thing over me.
That's performative. She even dug up anecdotes about me, ones totally unrelated, and repurposed them to make our situation seem 10 times scarier.
What was the purpose of all of this? To hurt Veronica? To hurt me? To get your sucked?
Yeah. Our mukbang had nothing to do with that. Why did Stephanie evoke themes that resonated with the Me Too climate? Why use those emotional cues? This was a takedown, a carefully constructed, emotionally charged hit piece. Whether it was to protect her own image, or grow her true crime brand, or control the narrative of her fallout, this was the strategy she chose. And I hope we can be honest about what that choice looked like and what it cost me. I think one of the most hurtful and harmful things that Stephanie said was that I already knew about her being in the past.
I told him about the one thing that I don't talk to anyone about.
That was not true. Stephanie and I had met just one time in person before filming. One time. At a restaurant. We didn't know each other very well. We weren't close. We were just trying to break the ice before filming. Telling me about the times she was in the past was never one of those icebreakers. I promise you. We didn't talk about anything like that. And why would we? We just met each other.
I had set up this dinner with me, Zach, and Nick at Hot Pot. Honestly, immediately going in, I was nervous. I definitely had a guard up.
Does it even make sense that someone who describes herself as being an anxious person and hesitant to meet me, as she said in her own words, that this person would suddenly open up about the most private, deeply personal experiences of her entire life that, as she said, most of the world never knew? And to do this on the very first day that we met, surrounded by friends, surrounded by strangers eating at tables next to us, it doesn't make sense because it's simply not true. The truth is, we were two YouTubers meeting for the first time, trying to break the ice before our job. So we talked about our job. We talked about the things we liked, the things we didn't. That led to gossiping, who we liked, who we didn't. It wasn't some deep emotional exchange. But later, she told the internet that I knew these personal things about her.
And I was nervous. I definitely had a guard up. I ended up opening up about something that I don't even talk about on YouTube. I was in my own home. It was somebody that I had to let into my home. I told him about the one thing that I don't talk to anyone.
That was strategic, so that she could paint me in the worst possible light and then turn people against me in the worst possible way. And you've probably heard the phrase, in and out of sleep. It's something that people say when they're tired. And that's exactly how Stephanie used it with me when she texted me, when she didn't show up to our collab last minute.
I was in and out of sleep. Hey guys, sorry I've been in and out of sleep.
I remember thinking, really? In and out of sleep? I mean, I cleared my whole schedule to be here. I flew to her state. I was really upset, and I ranted about it.
Just been in and out of sleep, and I don't know what's
Like, in and out of sleep, in and out of sleep.
But in her video, she reframed the phrase in and out of sleep in the context of use, but only after telling people that I knew she had been in the past, which I didn't.
You knew why. I'm so paranoid. You know why.
Was it wrong for me to vent about it with my friends? Yes. Was it wrong for me to vent about it online? Yes. But we weren't joking or laughing about her being I didn't know that. My friends didn't know that. None of us knew that. We were reacting to what felt like being ghosted before a major collaboration. A major collaboration. In and out of sleep was the only context we had. It's the only reason she gave me. And honestly, I felt blindsided. I felt stood up.
In and out of sleep, we turned something that really bothered me into something that we could laugh about. It's just you have to laugh about things to get over.
And my friends were honestly just trying to cheer me up.
You know, I got things to do. I got things to do.
Have you been in and out of sleep?
In and out of sleep. Oh my gosh. In and out of sleep right.
And so I was mocking her excuse. But Stephanie, who was afraid I might speak up about what really happened or the things she told me off camera, got ahead of the story and repackaged that moment into something it never was. And then thousands of people made emotional interpretations linking the in and out of sleep thing to her trauma history, concluding that I had been mocking a survivor. And that's what hurt the most. Not just being misunderstood, but being deliberately misrepresented But Stephanie didn't just rely on her words to sell this story. She relied on performance. The trembling voice, the sudden tone shifts, even moments where she appeared to cry, only for the emotion to vanish seconds later. It just all felt calculated, like a script meant to feel raw without actually being raw. And once you see it for what it is, it's hard to unsee.
Is there anything else you'd like to say? And I just remember feeling so gutted. Like my heart had dropped to the ground because I thought it was going to be another interrogation.
That's performative. Real emotion is messy. It shows up physically on the body. The swelling of the face, the mucus, the vocal cords being blocked by mucus, the tears that come that don't wait for a cue. But in her video, it was like flipping on a light switch.
And it's not the little movement. How dare you discredit an entire movement that the sole purpose was giving people a voice because you had a bad date in New York City. No one's going to believe you because
A flip of a switch, 2 shaky sentences, and then she's back to baseline. Almost like that emotion wasn't lived. It was timed, designed to land a punch. And the editing only makes the case that much stronger, where the most intense moments were stitched together with jump cuts, as if they had to be assembled just right to maximize impact.
I feel like I've been manipulated by that I can't say no to him. I just want to take back my power to say no. Not feel like someone's holding this thing over me and me. I feel like in normal circumstances, I probably wouldn't share a private text message.
That's performative. It's like going through the motions, hoping the delivery feels real, even if it's not. This wasn't just storytelling. This was narrative control, wrapped up in vulnerability and then pointed directly at me. And when most people recount something serious, they don't use parts of their brain to switch in and out of character voices. They just talk. The emotion flows naturally, or it doesn't at all, depending on the person. But here, the emotion switches on and off mid-sentence. One moment she's gasping and quivering for air, and then the next moment she's cool as a cucumber. Take our text messages, for instance. She starts out all smiley and giggly.
I've been in and out of sleep all afternoon after staying up late, and I realized I had a few sponsors due. I hope you guys understand.
But then seconds later switches into a new character voice when reading my texts.
Stephanie, I have been sitting here for 5 hours. So no, I'm sorry. I do not understand. But ignore me for 5 hours after that. Don't play games.
And then it goes back to her texts, now suddenly gasping for air, all breathy and broken.
But ignore me for 5 hours after that. Don't play games. I texted it back and I said, again, I'm so sorry if...
And then the next moment, she flips the switch and goes back to the Nikocado voice.
I'm so sorry if there was any miscommunication and if I made you feel that way. I'm so sorry for today and I hope you're able to enjoy the rest of your day. And he responded with, please talk to me. Zach told me he wants to be left out. I reached out half a day and I feel we need to chat.
Literally moments apart. It just doesn't feel like she's saying straight up what's going on. It feels like she's bringing out the theatrics and performing for the camera. A true crime audition tape for many different roles.
That's what I normally do. And I just want to say thank you so much for giving me a platform and giving me a way. I just want to say thank you so much for giving me a platform and feel like I have a voice. And I just want to say
again, performative.
I just need to do whatever I can to get through tonight and tomorrow because we have collabs scheduled tomorrow.
It feels highly performative.
Just be done with it. I don't want him to make a video trying to say all these things I said about
making yourself suddenly gasp for air and then coming right back down 2 seconds later. Working together to frame our situation far darker than it ever was. To justify the title, Why She Was Scared of Me.
How extreme things have gotten. I was already feeling really scared and I can't imagine how much more frightened. I just couldn't, but I was just so scared.
And why the viewers should feel scared.
And tomorrow, because we have collabs scheduled tomorrow. So I must have... believe that they know the full story. Not just going up against Nick, but look at all the friends he has. You know, who do I have? And I just felt like I couldn't say anything.
That's performative.
I felt like I couldn't talk about it because what was there to talk about? I felt like I couldn't talk about it because...
again, performative.
Texted me or called me. I
That feels less like a personal story and more like a true crime reenactment. Not because emotion isn't valid, of course it is, but because this emotion didn't feel organic. It felt choreographed. And if this were fiction, it would be one thing, but I'm a real person.
Can't say no to him. I just want to take back my power.
It's disturbing how heavily she felt the need to lean into these themes of you-know-what to sell her story. She even typed in the phrase, "Hi Nick, I know you're seeing this," into the tags of her YouTube video. And tags are something only YouTubers would tend to look at. That doesn't feel like the behavior of someone claiming to be so scared. So scared, yet you'd go and taunt and imitate them too? What purpose would that have served to anybody else watching the video? None. And so it felt highly calculated. Even the thumbnail felt calculated. Look at what she's sitting in front of. Look at what it implies. The tears set on cue, holding herself in distress. A teary scene, by the way, that never even appeared in the actual video. Out of every possible place she could sit and film, she chose this spot. That wasn't random. That was a visual strategy meant to shape perception before a single word was ever spoken. And Stephanie didn't just lean into the theatrics, she took it a step even further with editing. We filmed an ASMR video for my channel, whispering, soft-spoken, relaxed, calm, but that's the whole point of ASMR.
And they're gonna help me make it, so let's get started.
At the end of the video, when we were wrapping up and saying our goodbyes, asking our viewers to subscribe, I turned to her and I asked, "Is there anything else you'd like to say?"
What would you like to say?
Stephanie took this out of context and distorted it to make me sound way worse, with dramatic zoom-ins and everything.
Nick turned to me and he said, "Is there anything else you'd like to say?" And I just remember feeling so gutted. Like my heart had dropped to the ground because I thought it was going to be another interrogation.
What would you like to say?
Thank you for watching us eat these. And so
Your heart dropped to the ground? We were saying goodbye. So now I'm going to show you the real version that she edited out. In fact, watch her hand movements toward the end, where it seems as if she wanted to say something before closing out the video.
Thank you. Wait. What do we do now? Goodbye. She's playing the flute. What would you like to say?
thank you for watching us eat these. We love you. This is the new filet mignons.
The filet mignons. Bye, everyone.
But Stephanie brought out the shaky character voice.
And I just remember feeling so gutted. Like my heart had dropped to the ground. My heart had dropped to the ground because I thought it was going to be another interrogation.
To misrepresent me.
He really thought that I wanted to spill my guts about Veronica all of a sudden.
Does this sound like common sense? That I'd suddenly just launch into spilling tea in whisper format at the end of a very quiet video? To sit there and start whispering shit like we were in some ASMR confessional booth? I mean, it doesn't even sound believable. She also claimed she had made it apparent how uncomfortable she really was.
In the video, there's no way Nick did not know that I was so uncomfortable for those 30 minutes.
Really?
He knew. There's no way he didn't know I was uncomfortable.
Would you have gathered she was experiencing utter distress? Yeah, not exactly broadcasting discomfort, is it? So when she ghosted me for the collab the next day, that's why I felt blindsided, because that was the last interaction we had.
I'm this effing close to making an video. What the F is wrong with people so rude and inconsiderate?
I didn't sense there was anything wrong. She didn't tell me there was anything wrong. But the only thing that she did do was deliberately misrepresent what happened at the end of that ASMR video.
And he said, "Is there anything else you'd like to say?"
While just having spent 30 minutes connecting me to the Me movement
#2.
and associating me with the person who abused her years before we met.
And the only way that I've ever felt like this prior to Nick, it was one where
This was performance, supported by deliberate editing choices. She clipped, she cut, she curated, and there was a clear intention behind it. And it didn't stop there. She continued to exaggerate our experience together, and this includes the house photos. Stephanie and I talked a little bit about interior design. She had recently bought her home, and I was looking to renovate mine. She gave me a house tour of her place upon arrival, and we had what seemed like very nice conversations about lighting layouts, appliances, security features, the usual when you talk about home projects. During much of this conversation, we were in the kitchen, which was a shared, open concept space. I was taking photos of different elements that she was pointing out. I was also on FaceTime with Orlin, sharing the ideas in real time. This isn't the most flattering screenshot of Stephanie. The point is, she knew I was taking photos. She was there, she was participating in the conversation, and actively involved in showing me around. Nothing about it was hidden. She said she didn't know why I was taking photos of her house.
And then immediately he started looking around at the ceiling. I didn't have any cool light fixtures up there. I just don't know what else would be up there other than security cameras.
She also mentioned that after briefly leaving the room, she saw me on her kitchen security camera taking photos.
And during that time that I slipped away to the restroom very, very quickly, the one time that I did, without letting me know what he was doing, he took multiple pictures inside my house. Seeing that footage was shattering.
This is where things get more nuanced. I can actually understand that having someone take photos when you're not in the room can feel uncomfortable. Truthfully, I wasn't trying to cross a boundary because in my mind, I saw it as a continuation of taking the photos we had been taking together thus far. I never left the common area. I didn't go looking around the house. I stayed right there and continued to take photos of the things we were talking about while she stepped out of the room. Looking back, I realized I was at fault with this part. I was too presumptive. We didn't know each other like that. I totally get it. I do. Especially for someone she had just met. And after all this happened, and she made the video about me, and I learned that she had past trauma in that house, I can see how that freaked her out. I can. Stephanie, for that, I am sorry. I genuinely apologize. What I didn't feel was fair, however, was how she portrayed this moment in the context of abuse, but only after telling people that I knew she had been in the past, which I didn't. And by now it's clear that this narrative building was intentional. She also referred to the kitchen security monitor, implying that I revealed something private by taking a photo of that too. But that monitor had already been visible in dozens of her own videos, seen by millions long before we ever met. It was visible in her house tours, her vlogs, her interviews. I mean, it was something that literally sat on her kitchen counter. When people come to my page and comment, "You jeopardize her security system," I didn't wander around the house and look for her system or all the controls. It was the monitor. It was the same screen that you see when you watch her mukbangs or her vlogs. I was simply interested in it because I wanted one for myself, and she knows this because we talked about it.
He asked me, "What's the name of your fancy security system? I low-key want that security system."
And again, looking back, it was out of step for someone she had just met. I'm not excusing that, and I take ownership that I shouldn't have done it. But I wish she would take ownership on how she amplified it.
It was just something that I don't think I'll ever be able to understand.
Now, someone might say, well, if that security monitor is already online, what would be the need to take a photo, right? And, you know, that's a fair question. It makes me think, like, why do we take photos of the Statue of Liberty, even though it's already all over Google? I was just excited. I was there. I was in person. I was talking about it with Orlin. She was telling me about it. I was learning about it, but I don't appreciate how this got turned into something dark and calculated. That's why there's nuance here. You know, taking photos of her ceilings and her cabinets and security when she steps out the room, that's wrong. Lesson learned. And I apologize for that. But she wasn't being straight up about it in her video either. This was a strategic exaggeration. She embellished it.
I didn't have any cool light fixtures up there.
This was a targeted takedown against me.
At this point, my home safety is kind of in question. Of my safety, my security, any sort of security.
Maximum emotional impact.
Hashtag too.
A carefully constructed spectacle.
How extreme things have gotten.
Built on exaggeration.
I was already feeling really scared.
Omission of facts.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
And staged vulnerability.
Like my heart had dropped to the ground.
Because when you strip away all of the theatrics, the edits, the acting, the misleading claims about what I supposedly know, the trembling voice, the tears that never quite seemed to make it, you're left with the truth. And the truth was so much simpler than what she had made it to be. So much less pearl clutching than the viral version she created. She didn't just put me on blast for being difficult to work with or for being explosive in texts. She portrayed me as somebody someone who knew she was which I didn't, someone who made fun of the fact she was which I didn't, aligning our problem with the gravitational pull of the Me Too movement, which was unwarranted, saying that I took away her ability to speak. And she did all of these things sitting in front of a bed, a deliberate shift from her usual filming setup on that channel, as if she were recounting a true crime experience she had had with me. I'm very hurt by what she did to me. It has been a constant reminder, not because I can't let it go or I can't move on, but because millions of people take her version at face value. And when a version isn't true, it doesn't fade over time. It actually sticks. It shapes how people see me. Since losing weight, I've had no choice but to enter a new chapter of my life. I've launched a new YouTube channel. I'm back on Patreon, posting daily again. I'm trying to pour my energy into growth, connecting with people. But to fully connect with people means I need to heal the wounds surrounding this public issue. And a part of healing is telling the truth, fully and without distortion. Because for years, this story has lived lopsided. And the only way that I can move on is by having the truth acknowledged. Stephanie, I regret trying to pull you into drama. I regret the way I vented. I regret being inconsiderate of your boundaries and disrespecting your space. I regret all of that. I am truly sorry. You didn't deserve it, and I own that. But I also hope you can own your part too. It wasn't accurate. It exaggerated the truth. And that exaggeration has had real consequences on my life. You knew the emotional weight your video would carry. You knew how your delivery would all work together to shape how people saw me. You knew. That type of storytelling has the power to destroy somebody, the power to ruin them, even permanently. I had already become the villain on my own channel. I had never expected to be cast in a production on yours. Every day, somebody somewhere out in the world is saying I did things to you that I never did. I've owned my part, and I need to move forward. I'm asking that you find it within yourself to own your part too.